Hi everyone, it's Eileen here from the Spiritual Marketing Club and Stress Coach Training. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm a healer of 30 years. I run Stress Coach Training, which is basically an accredited stress management and relaxation therapy training, and I run the Spiritual Marketing Club, which helps healers live more of their purpose in their business and attract soul clients. And today I'm going to talk about awakening and how to support yourself through the awakening. And the reason that I'm doing this session is I've had a lot of my clients and students, I suppose, struggling like many people at this point in society and where we're at. And I'm going to talk about a few things that are really important, I think, for us to be consciously aware about as we move through this time. And so some of how I see things, and it might be different for other people, but I believe that this is something that I'm being guided to talk about today. So let's talk about the word awakening. The word to be awakened or to become awake or whatever in spiritual society, I believe is used very loosely. And often it's when people feel as if they're being spiritually awoken up. There's many layers to that awakening, and it's an ongoing process in many ways, even for people who go from one level of consciousness to a very high level of consciousness are awakening very quickly. There is still growth spurts through that. But one of the things that I've found quite, I suppose, strange in some ways, and I found it hard to get my head around about, is that in the spiritual community particularly, we use this and we use the terms often very loosely. And sometimes it's the ego actually saying, I'm awake or I'm awakened. But if we look at what's happened over the last few years in society, in the world as a whole, we've seen what's became apparent is seeing different levels of consciousness. What we've seen is different levels of awareness and different levels of awakening and what people see is truth or whatever. But the reality is that if you regard yourself as a light worker, your role is to be an awakened light worker, because when you're awakened, you can help others move through the darkness, move through the shadow, and you help guide the world. Or it's not the whole world, but it's like you guide who you're here to guide, or you help humanity move towards the light. Now, it's very hard to do your role as a light worker and to help others move through their level of awakening and consciousness if you haven't got to a certain level of awakening. Now, we're all helping each other through this. We're all moving towards full awakening, okay? We're all trying to help humanity at this time. As my role, I'm, I suppose, mostly a teacher and a mentor. I see many people using the term, I'm awoke, but on many levels it appears that they're still in a coma, or maybe just slightly awakening up, as if they're lying in their bed and they're just starting to wake a little bit, because you can tell by some of the things they're saying, they're doing. Now, I'm definitely not fully awakened. None of us, I don't think anybody would be on my mailing list would be fully awakened. And I suppose there's very few people on the earth that are fully awakened. And even to me, I still wonder if there is anyone who is on the planet at this point who is completely awakened, but that's another perception. But one of the things that I know that is really, really important is that we cannot help others if we cannot help ourselves. And we have to do the work, right? And there's lots of layers to that work. And how can you support yourself through the awakening? How can you support yourself through these challenging times? How can you keep yourself bright and light and be able to do what you're here to do? Well, obviously things like self-care is really, really important. I believe it's important to do different aspects. And one of the greatest things that I feel that has been very beneficial for me is being able to, I've invested in many different types of healers and spiritual teachers, and invested in a lot of learning, and not just a few days learning, but a lot of times when I've invested, I've chosen the longer path. And why have I chosen the longer path? Because it's increased my level of awareness and it's helped me awaken. Now, I'm going to be honest about something when we talk about awakening. One of my closest friends who's very spiritual and highly consciously aware, and oftentimes more like highly consciously aware than what I've been at times. When I was in funk about certain things, and maybe things were getting to me, and he would, talk about and say, well, you need to face this part and you have to do this, and but I do not want to awaken. I don't care about awakening. And that was that was the inner child coming out with a little stomp as if I don't care. And in some ways, I probably didn't grasp it, like a lot of us, where we didn't know how certain things were going to transpire. We may have an idea about things, or we may not. In many ways, I didn't have an idea. I wasn't really sure what was coming, but I suppose we all knew something was coming. And when we've been born to be a light worker, we have this sense that there is something, we're here for a reason. And sometimes there's a reason, there's a deepness to that. But what, I have to be honest, surprised me about how this whole thing, I actually never thought I was that awakened compared to other people. When actually I found out through the whole process the last few years that I was far more awakened than I thought I was, and far more awakened than many of the teachers round about me. And I'm not saying this from, what I mean is, I'm not saying, oh my goodness, there's so many people I'm still learning from and I'm going to seek. But what I noticed was people that I thought were more awakened, or more, maybe the right word is also more, had a certain higher level of consciousness. Through the last few years, it became apparent they either didn't, or they were basically functioning from their fear, right? And not really on a constant, I don't mean just making odd decisions from a certain, we all go in and out of these things, we all have our triggers. But what surprised me was the level of consciousness about things. And not someone, I have to be honest, a lot of people have their spiritual teachers and their gurus and there's people that they hang on to. I've never been that type of person. And I have to be honest, about maybe 10 years ago, I started going through this where I felt so much of what most people were saying did not resonate with me. And even though I go to teachers and learn from different things, I never ever completely put someone up on a pedestal that I ever believe everything they say. I have, I suppose, a level of inner guidance and intuition, and I've worked on that for years to be able to discern, I think the word is discern, what feels right. And even things that I may struggle with, if there's something about, I know there's a truth in it, but I may not like it, then obviously I sit with it. But we were it was forecasted that the golden age of awakening and the age of awakening, everything would be opened up, and we would have to face the light and dark within ourselves, but we would also have to see the light and dark within the whole of humanity in the world, and other elements to that, and other spiritual elements to that. And part of that, we were kind of forecast, is that what would happen was things would be more transparent, and everything that we saw. So how we do our work, we couldn't hide anymore. People would see what we truly are. So people see more of our faults and see, the aspects, the human aspects that sometimes we try and hide. And obviously my ego is just as strong as everyone else's. And, and aspects of that will show through in my work. But I think what surprised me was many teachers that many people put really on a pedestal. It was like what they were in many ways selling, or what they were preaching, was no longer palatable or no longer acceptable, because many in the healing and the Lightworker community started to see that they probably had a higher level of awakening than some of the people that they were following and looking for guidance, right? So no matter why that has arisen, what has happened there and what's going on, is it someone plummeting at their fear? Is it they're just so more concerned about their career or their business and certain things? Or is it they haven't really done the inner work? It's easy. Many people are, one of the things that I noticed is that many people who can be highly psychic and intuitive, for some reason, were not being able to awaken themselves to other degrees. And I have a variety of reasons I think that's why. And I think some of it is because they weren't doing the other work. They weren't doing the shadow work. They weren't doing the deep work. So, and they maybe weren't doing other things for awareness. So also they don't even know if the level of, that a certain level of consciousness and only attracting certain type of guidance, right? I'm kind of getting off the rail, but I just wanted to try and explain what, I suppose in some ways has been going through my head, but what I've been experiencing. But the reality is that it doesn't matter where we're at, right? But it's where we're going, right? And yes, of course, we all have to be fully where we're at, right? And accept that and say, right, okay, maybe I've missed some things. Maybe I'm not as awoken as what I am, right? Or what I thought was, or maybe my level of consciousness needs to be raised up. Maybe I missed the point. Maybe I'm not seeing everything as I would hoped. Maybe I misunderstood what awakening really meant. And I think there's so many layers to awakening on the spiritual, but also on our complete physical reality of us being able to see through the truth. Because awakening is about taking that veil away, and that veil has to come and be able to see us to see past different layers of things, right? We have a situation in society and all over the world where there is so much control and censorship going on that is trying to stop people awaken, that is trying to stop humanity raise its vibration and raise its consciousness. But you are here to fully awaken. You are here to help others fully awaken. And one of the biggest things that I can say from my heart is you have to be able to face your biggest fears. And that may mean that you do go through elements of the dark night of the soul and have to face things that you never ever thought you'd have to face. But the reality is every single one of us are more stronger, more resilient, and more powerful and beautiful and have much more light and potential and beauty than we ever imagined. We just take this rose in front of us. And this rose is just beginning to open up. And if we look so much closer, there's all these intrinsics. Look at the little, it's almost like feather-like round the petals. It's almost like little jaggy, but they're feather-like opening. Now, I think part of the way that that's the photograph been taken, it kind of maybe looks softer because a rose has a certain level of protection. But the reality is that, yes, we all have certain things that keep us safe, right? And at certain stages in our life, just like when we're a child, we have to be kept safe. But part of awakening is becoming the adult, right? It's the adult part of us, and part of being a light worker. I got this very, very strongly. I had a lot of visions and things that were going on for quite a few years ago, and it was continuing. And I was getting this vision, and it was like Joan of Arc, where many of us in the light workers community were also being at the forefront of helping the light workers move forward. And what I saw was, it was a light warrior, and where one part of the light worker, where many of us may feel or struggle with or discomfort, is being part of the light warrior. And what do I mean by that? Well, I do believe we all have different roles to play. But if we cannot own part of the light warrior archetype within us, we're going to struggle to keep the resilience and the strength. Because what I saw in the light warrior energy was this real strong firmness and strength and courage that would help us fully embrace our strength and courage and to move forward with the light, no matter what other people or whatever else was trying to, how could you see, attack us or destroy us or to try and impact us. Was that if we could own aspects of the light warrior within. So how would I describe the light warrior? The light warrior is a beacon of light, a beacon of the lightest, highest vibrations of God, of love, of strength and courage. And a light worker is not all soft and fluffy, because often the light workers are also the teachers, the guider, the mentor, because they're leading by example. And when you lead by example, you need to have strength and courage, because sometimes we have to do things when we're a teacher or a mother or a mentor, that type of role, where we have to do things that are not always easy and things that we may find hard, but we know it's the right thing to do. And being a light worker is doing the right thing. And it's about us doing, it's coming from true integrity, true integrity of spirit and soul. And if we want to do what's right for humanity, and we want to help lead people forward, and we're all going to do that in different ways and continue. We have been doing it, but we're going to continue to do it through different ways. But to support yourself through the awakening, we have to remain physically as strong as we can, mentally and emotionally strong. I know I am not, and this is reality. I'm still I need to work on my physical strength. That doesn't mean that I cannot be still the light warrior, even if I do not have fully physical health. I think there's a misunderstanding about this, because we all come in, I'm not saying we come into the world flawed, we're not, core level, we're not flawed. But on a human level, none of us have what we may perceive as perfection. We are all perfect, but we come in all shapes, disguises, with all sorts of strengths and vulnerabilities. Right? And we can all move forward where we are. right? We can all do where we are. But if we do not focus on what's truly important at this point and do the inner work and face what we don't want to face, we're going to struggle to be really awakened. We're going to struggle to raise ourselves at a level of consciousness, but we're going to struggle to help the clients. And I feel that this at the moment is quite an urgent message, because at the moment we've had a lot of shifts in energy. We've had a lot of things happening in the collective that is making people wake up. And some are not maybe waking spiritually up or waking up just up. So there's different levels. There's waking up to the truth of what is going on in the illusion and in the deceit. There's waking up to realizing that you are a spiritual being, you're a powerful being, and to see that on a different, I suppose, see the different realms to that. But both are intertwined, right? Both are intertwined in many ways. And many people are functioning on fear. Many light workers, I can see in my groups, I can feel it in the energy, I can feel it in the collective, I can feel it with my clients, my students. Many people are functioning from a level of fear, stress, and anxiety, and also apathy. And I've talked about the apathy before, and if any of you want to look at that, I do have a blog on apathy, and I think I did do a session on it as well in my stress coach training side of the business. Apathy is actually keeping a lot of light workers, it's stopping a lot of light workers step up. It's keeping them small. The apathy is keeping them in that sludge, that darkness, which is what, I suppose, the dark, that if we look at it as part of this as a spiritual war, it's what the darker aspects of the world wants to keep us in, where the awakening is seeing our beauty, seeing our power, seeing in light, and owning that love and light, and being truly guided by the light, truly guided by the Spirit, the Holy Spirit of God, the universe, the highest dimensions of light. So to support yourself through this awakening, it's important that we pause. It's important that we are honest with ourselves when we have to do certain work. It's important that we see when maybe we need to do some more work to be able to help other people. Because one of the things that I was really surprised about through all of this was, I remember seeing a post by a healer that I knew, and so it was someone I knew personally, and I actually was quite shocked about this, and I was a wee bit, I found it sad, because this post had said that, you know, she never ever, it was basically about other medical, you know, the medical society should be the ones that should be making the decisions about all of us, about what we do with our body and our health, and how she never would read what was on a prescription. She would never look at the ingredients. She would never look what was in her food and all this. And I found it really surprising and as a sad, because I believed as a healer is about there to support people take self-responsibility for their own self-healing, to take self-responsibility what we put in our body, to be educated and to be informed, and to take our self-responsibility back. And to me, what she was claiming was completely the opposite scale of what I believed a healer to be. And I think a lot of us in the light worker community have found a lot of this quite strange, because we're seeing a lot of this type of thing, and we've found it we've seen maybe other things where other aspects of society are so focused on the spiritual, away from the spiritual aspect, that they're so focused on money. Now, I believe, of course, money is just energy, and money is part of function in the world. But what I mean is, we've seen also a situation where groups are so functioning on just money, but they're losing the spiritual and the light worker aspect within it. So it becomes about desperation. It becomes so, the ego is so entrenched in the financial aspect, or the driven and the stress aspect as well, the hustle, that we've lost what the light worker role is at this point. And of course, there's many people that are here to help people awaken and support them with their money, and to do that in certain ways. But we've got an imbalance in many ways, and many people are struggling because we're seeing the reality is all around the world. I have clients and members in my newsletter all over the world, and many in different circumstances, seeing huge increases in inflation. So some of my own students are, their rent is suddenly doubled in, maybe gas and electricity, other things, and inflation is completely increased. And they're feeling really anxious and stressed and overwhelmed by how they're going to survive, right? But the reality is, it's easy when these type of situations happen, when we get real challenges that seem to impact the root chakra and the lower chakras of fear and survival and whatever. These are the trigger points that can pull us down in lower levels of awakening if we don't face it and we don't overcome it. Of course, there's certain things we have to address, and I will be sharing some tips for people to move through if they're going through, if they're in situations where the inflation is really what feels to be crippling their business, and how to change their business, because often it can be the business model they're using. When inflation goes up in prices, it's like the price match cannot, what they're bringing in and how many clients they have cannot match the outgoings. They have to change what they do. But what I would remind you is that in circumstances like that, when we are pushed and something feels as if it's ready to break, or are we feeling we're going to lose something, no matter what happens, remember, out of extreme challenges and situations that are forced on us, often breaks through awakening on different levels. It does it because it breaks us through to awaken to seeing things from a different perspective. It helps us let go of attachment to situations and things. But it also, if we don't allow apathy to take over, it helps reinforce our ability to move forward in a more powerful way, and maybe a different way, right? We may have to do things differently, particularly in the spiritual community, particularly because censorship, is impacting and is getting clearer and clearer that, as a whole, that certain things do not want the light and the spirituality to be blossoming at the moment. It doesn't mean that we cannot do it. We're so much more powerful together, and we are winning at the moment. We just have to be there to help. In some ways, it's like picking up the pieces and helping our clients pick up the pieces. Many people are very confused by what's going on, and people have not done the work, cannot see. They know something's not right. They can feel it. Their sense and things are not matching up, but they maybe cannot see the pictures of what's going on. And it's one of the reasons that I decided through the summer, for a few reasons, I'm going to be giving some extra support to my family, but I'm also slowing down for the summer for my own well-being and for my own growth. So I have more time to do what I want to do and what I feel I need to do to keep me strong. But I'm also wanting to clear my week up a little bit to give some space for support sessions, because some of my clients and students, it was very clear recently that they needed more spiritual support. Now, in my business, even though I suppose I promote the spiritual marketing, often most people that come to me are actually getting it's spiritual and soul guidance to get within the marketing, because it's very much about getting into their purpose and about them, about their individuality. in relation to their purpose and aspects. So it's something that I do, and obviously I'm a trained healer for 30 years, and I've done lots of different things, and I've studied all sorts of things: counselling, psychology, psychotherapy, all different modalities of spiritual healing and channeling and things. And obviously I'm a big fan, most people know, of inner child and archetype work. If you need extra support, I have some sessions. They are limited, but I am offering some support, one-to-one support sessions to help you through this time. We have to help each other, and we have to be able to face the things that we are struggling with, or areas that we're not raising our consciousness with. We have to be able to get the help. We have to have the ability to see things from a wider perspective. And that's why, as I said, the best thing I did was invest in many teachers and work on and learn many different modalities, because they all taught me something different and helped me not to get stuck. It's one of the reasons that many years ago, even when I was trained as a Reiki master and teacher, I personally went to different healers and tried all different types of healing, and I studied many holistic therapies, because I realized that there was more and more, and often what we're taught in one modality, it's not always the bigger picture. There's more and more. And it was why I then moved away from that modality and started doing other types of things. For me, I needed certain types of vibrations to work with different vibrations. And it gave me a wider perspective. I wasn't as limited looking. And I think we are being pushed to awaken to all sorts of possibilities, right? And it doesn't mean that we all have the truth. But what if you keep hiding your hand under the covers and you keep proclaiming that you're awakened, but you do not want to face anything? You do not want to see things, that you only want to see the light, but you're not willing to face the shadow. You're going to struggle, because your level of consciousness, you're going to struggle to raise that level of consciousness, because you're not clearing old stuff. You're not clearing the old triggers, right? Awakening is it's a journey, and we are all in it together. But we have to try and let our ego go to the side and recognize that we are still growing. We're still not fully blossomed. This rose has not fully blossomed. Okay. And it's important that we all fully blossom. And to help others, we always need to be quite a few steps ahead of them. And some people say you only need to be 1 or 2 steps. I disagree for a lot of reasons, because it's very easy then for the person to catch up. If you're going to really truly help people, and you are going to take money from them to help, you want to be ensured that you are in the right, you are at that point the right person. And of course, we're all at different levels, and we're all here to help people at different levels. But if you truly want to help people awaken, many people are awakening at fast levels and are basically over kind of jumping the teachers, right? So it's almost like they need help and support to get through this stage, but they need teachers that are at a certain level. Believe me, it's very disappointing when you invest in someone, right? And you invest and you realize that they have got they're not at a certain level of awakening or consciousness, because they can't help you often. Because if you've got a higher level of awakening or level of consciousness in certain areas, and you're going to them, they're going to struggle to be able to help you move forward. So we have to grow, we have to evolve. And part of growing and evolve is actually just being open and being able to face what we may not know, and be willing to look and to be willing to look at things from a different perspective. In many ways, no matter what level you're at, this is not about getting on to you or anything. This is about embracing how far you've come, because everyone is done amazing, and embracing to, you know, to where we're at. And we all have little blips, but it's about increasing awareness, self-awareness, right? Because sometimes one of the things that I see is many people invest in the training, and they get all the certificates, but they never invest in teachers just to evolve, to do their inner work. They never do that. They invest only in getting the qualifications and certificates, which feeds the ego, okay? Which gives us, I'm not everyone, I've got I've got an arm full. People are quite shocked at how many qualifications I have, and most of them have been achieved. They're not 2 or 3 days. A lot of them are over a year, and a lot of training. And there was other reasons why I did, but it's easy to feed the ego to get another certificate when we're not doing actually the real work, or we're not mastering what we're being taught. It's so important that you look after yourself at this time. It's so important that you support yourself, not just to help others, also because if you want to be fully awakened, and if you want to get to that other side with a certain level of consciousness, you have to do the work. And it's easy to do the work and help other people and not do it for yourself. I wish you a beautiful day. I wish you a beautiful week and a beautiful month. Bye for now.